Here. Riley, David, don't make.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of This Week Unloaded. Oh, excuse me. Tonight we have with us, as always, Tardot and Gunpowder Beauty. And our two guests will be RL and Gary. How's everybody doing tonight?
I'm doing.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, guys.
How's it going?
Night Strike, be quiet.
Night Strike causing problems out there.
For those of you that didn't see last week's show, we will each be picking a topic to discuss, and tonight we will start with Gary. Are you ready to go, Gary?
I am ready.
All right. Tell us what you got.
Okay, what I'm going to discuss today is an article from the Washington Post that has to do with 5 states allow guns to be seized before someone can commit violence. And it basically goes on to say that in the wake of massacres similar to Wednesday school shootings in Parkland, Florida, a small number of states have passed red flag laws that allow the seizure of guns before people can commit acts of violence. And there are 5 states, California, Washington, Oregon, Indiana, and Connecticut, that have statutes that can be used to take guns away from people a judge deems to be a threat to themselves or others. Lawmakers in 18 other states have proposed similar measures, and at the federal level, they have introduced legislation last May that would encourage states to adopt the approach. Mental illness, escalating threats, substance abuse, and domestic violence are among the circumstances in which a judge can order weapons restrictions under the statutes. So the question I've got is, what is everybody's opinions to red flag laws?
Honestly, to a point, there's got to be some extent of us catching this stuff beforehand when people do show red flags, but at the same time, kind of like what you're talking about, they always take that a little too far. I equivalate a lot of the laws they put out to Obama's little executive action of if you have government funding or what they would consider government aid, and you've got somebody helping you with your finances. They always take something one step a little too far with trying to set up red flags of what could cause a problem with firearm ownership.
Yeah, I agree. The way I could see red flags would be if somebody had been institutionalized and they had been put on medication, to have a waiting period while they're on that medication potentially. And then once they show signs of improvement and don't show signs of being in a danger possibly to themselves or others, then give them their rights back or reinstate their rights, if you were a better word for it. That would be the only thing I think that could possibly be something that this could happen with. And that's just my opinion on that.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of the problem is they never give you, a lot of these people who commit minor felonies, they're not violent felons, anything like that, and they've done their time and they've done their paid their debt. They don't give them that route to get their rights back. There's really no route for that, and even the states that do offer it, it's a long road to take and an expensive one at times.
Yeah, it can cost you $2,000 or more to get something expunged from your record, and that's starting with a misdemeanor. So yeah, that's definitely something that is very true on that when it comes to the expense of it. And in the Old West, if anybody has ever looked this up and studied it, when you went to prison, there were many people when when you turned themselves in to go into custody of the state or the federal government, they would wear their 6-gun on their hip and they would hand it over to them. The guards were responsible for the care of that firearm, and when they got out, they were giving it back. There was no question of, oh, you did this, so you can't have that. As soon as you got out of prison, you were given all your rights back right then and there.
Well, and I think, with red flag laws, the big thing is with what happened in Florida, this kid had a lot of red flags. Heck, he had people calling the police. He had the FBI called on him, and we see that situation more and more nowadays, where the due diligence of the government isn't happening. So the red flag laws kind of become a moot point when they're not actually doing what they're supposed to when these red flags are coming up.
Well, see, I don't know about all the states. I know in Kansas, for example, there are a lot of situations where you're no longer allowed to purchase firearms, and you're not legally allowed to possess such firearms, but there's nothing in place to allow the government to go get said firearms. So I think that's the mechanism they're trying to put into place here.
But too, when you're talking about taking somebody's ability to be able to purchase firearms away, not even taking away what they currently have, but just taking away their ability to be able to purchase. The other side of that, no matter what you're talking about with red flag laws, is due process. That's the big thing. They always take due process out of the equation whenever they talk about this. It was the same thing that was happening with the no-fly list. If you were on the no-fly list, you couldn't buy a gun, and you could obviously consider that a red flag. You're on the no-fly list, but they never told you about it. You had to find out when you went to make your next purchase, and then at that, they drug it out to where it was almost impossible to fight it. You couldn't really get it in court, all of that stuff.
That's true.
Yeah, and that's one of the problems that happened with the Florida case. They reported this kid, but he had never been adjudicated of doing anything or of having been adjudicated of being mental defective or mentally incompetent to purchase a firearm, which is why he was able to pass the background check to get the rifle that he had.
Yeah, and that's exactly where I was talking about. It's the due diligence. Red flag laws are those feel-good laws right now because it takes the due diligence of a lot of parties to actually get it to accomplish anything. Most part, they're not going to accomplish anything.
I honestly don't know how I feel about it. When it comes to the no-fly list, we have already seen where there's already been enough cases that it's not doing what it's supposed to. I mean, there was one case where they had a 5-year-old on a do-not-fly list, so there's already issues with that. When it comes to them having the red flag in those states, it just seems like it's going to be more of an issue than it is going to help because they're not stating what exactly is going to sit there and cause you to be on the red flag list or whatever it's going to be called. I don't know. I think it could help, but I think until they get the wording completely accurate, it's going to cause more problems than it's going to be helpful.
Clover Tag says 5-year-old. Oh my gosh, the diaper bomber.
Heck, Ted Kennedy was on the list too.
Yeah, I was going to ask if anybody remembered who it was in the Senate that was on the no-fly list.
Well, Ted killed somebody. He should have been on a list.
Yeah.
He should have been in prison. That's where he should have been.
Well, there's a lot of politicians that need to be on that list, but it's just whether or not they'd actually be on there.
And it comes back to what Gunpowder Beauty said, is they created a monster and they have no foundation for it. So it can go all the way down, all the way up, all the way north, all the way south, all the way east, all the way we don't know where it can go because there's no parameters for it set.
Exactly.
And that's how you get a 5-year-old on a no-fly hashtag watch list for terrorists.
Like I said, it takes a lot of hands in the cookie jar, and they all got to coordinate. And as we've all witnessed, our government is not the best at coordinating.
No, they are not, and that's another reason why they need to be kept out of a lot of issues.
That's also how you end up with a 2-year-old in a wheelchair having to go through an enhanced search at an airport because apparently the 2-year-old is smuggling a firearm.
Yeah. Well,
the big problem with the no-fly list was nobody knows how you get on it. Nobody knows how you get off it. There's no due process involved. So if you can find out a way to give people recourse, then maybe there's something that could be done there. But that's going to take a heck of a law to be able to give people, the recourse to get off the list and, what the judge can use to put you on the list.
That was the big argument at the time, is there would be the ability to find a line of recourse, but they were in such a rush to push something like that out there. They weren't even worried about giving a way for anybody to find out if they were on it and get off of it.
Right. That's why I argued against it on a couple online forums and stuff that, if you don't even know how you get on it, how are you going to fight it to get off it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's about the size of if you don't know something, you can't fight it. And they don't tell you you're on it. You just show up at the airport one day, go to get on your flight, and you're denied because, you're on the no-fly list. What? I'm trying to remember where I think it was on Fox News a couple years ago where somebody found themselves on the no-fly list because they had too many parking tickets.
Yeah, that's unacceptable. For parking tickets. Yeah.
I gotta imagine. I wonder how many people listening out in the chat or anybody in here, if any of us are on the no-fly list.
I guess go buy a plane ticket and we'll find out.
After tonight, we may all be on the no-fly list.
That's true.
No, but because there are no answers for these things, and if there are, it's someone is controlling it. And that's what it comes down to, control.
Definitely.
All right. Anybody else have anything to add to this topic? If not, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with you shortly. John, do your thing.
What did we say about saying that? Okay. So today, our Gun Channel Blitz member is going to be that guy's wife. So go check her out. She is the Clover Queen of gun channels. Hint, wink, hint, hint. And go subscribe to her. And don't forget to mention the hashtag Gun Channels Blitz in your comments on one of those videos. So again, go check out Gun Channels Blitz, that guy's wife. Back to our show.
All right. Thank you, John. Gunpowder, you're up. What do you got?
Well, for my topic, it's kind of what's been going on today. YouTube, they're going after a few gun channels. It's bigger channels. I think that it's a little over exaggerated on some cases. But it's a topic that we kind of need to address. For me, I think that we need to look at the bigger picture of what is going on, what kind of content was being put out there, what was being said, before everyone just starts saying that YouTube's attacking people. But for me, I think that it's just a big... Everyone needs to kind of take a step back and not really blame YouTube, but blame... We'll call them trolls because that's kind of what they're acting like. But they're the ones that are going out and attacking, flagging videos as inappropriate. YouTube is understaffed for the amount of content creators that are out there. And for that, I think that everybody needs to just kind of take a step back and look and realize that YouTube's bigger than it's got the manpower to handle. And there's not enough people that are going to be able to go and actually investigate or look into the problem. And, you know, I think we just need to act like adults. Don't go attacking the liberal channels or anti-gun channels. We need to be the bigger person and just let this little storm ride out and not add fuel to the fire. What is everybody else's opinion?
I'm going to throw this out here, and this is just my little take on it. YouTube is big. They have a lot of people working there. You're going to tell me after all these years YouTube has been in existence, creating all these bots and everything, that they're not to blame? I don't want to hear that. They are to blame. They created a monster to make you guilty before you go to trial. And that's, in my opinion, the reason they are to blame. And
I'll say this much, and we went into it on Clearing the Chamber a bit, so I know a lot of people already kind of know my point of view. YouTube is to blame as far as the follow-up to the process. But YouTube is not to blame for the initial issue of the banning, because yes, they have a lot of people that work with them, but there's also, God, you know, however many channels on there that are, they don't have enough people to watch every one of those channels and see what's going on. So that's why they got to work off the appeal process. And like we've talked about before, you know, YouTube, there's no way it's a profitable website. I know they're trying to get it there, but there's no way it's completely profitable because of how much money's got to go in to maintain those servers and everything else. But in the end, you know, a lot of it comes down to it's the trolls out there. I mean, yes, YouTube has bad follow-up process to all of this, but the initial problem is the people out there that are uneducated when it comes to gun rights and everything that surrounds gun rights. And I think, honestly, and now I'm not going to say we are responsible for those people, but we are responsible for getting the right message out there and keeping the content to the point where when we do have to appeal, YouTube doesn't have anything to come back and say, well, no, the people were right. You violated our policies. You're shut down.
Okay, so I'm going to take it a step further and say YouTube has made it known to people that they can complain about it, and then it'll be researched once you've already been banned, once your channel's already been shut down. They already make people aware they have the ability to do that. If that wasn't the case, then the people would make their complaint, then YouTube would research it. But to say, strike, 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 you're gone. No, that's unacceptable.
No, I agree. I'm not going to disagree that they need to put a little bit of a change to their format.
It's a big fail, and it should never have been the case. But we all know that YouTube's agenda and what it is. I'm sorry.
But it was just like that came up on Clearing the Chamber. The argument is also about a private company. So, you know, people want to scream my First Amendment rights when it's a private company. Unless it's a guarantee and you are getting a more or less a contract out of them, there's no recourse on that.
Yeah.
Your First Amendment rights pretty much apply to the government, and if you have any contracts saying you're guaranteed to have this ability.
No, this is irrelevant of the First Amendment. You didn't hear me even use that term, First Amendment. YouTube was created in this light. This is how they were created. This is the whole point of their ground. This is what their foundation they stand on. So when we have to understand, when people get upset, there is a reason for it, and there is a legitimate reason for it. Not tinfoil hat reasons. There's legitimate reasons that exist why people get mad the way they get mad. YouTube created something with the initial responses, shut you down. And I understand it's a private company, but that's what they created.
Yeah, they did create a monster, especially in the ability to police ourselves. That was a monster in itself.
I can't blame people for getting upset, and I can't blame people for feeling the way they feel when they've already been shut down before they had the chance to appeal. I'm sorry, it's all about fairness. Forget about the
that I do agree with. I will agree that when they don't have the ability to appeal, that's poor business practice, is what I'll say.
Yes, super poor business practices.
Here's the thing. They have the right to do it. The Supreme Court has already ruled that they have the right to do it. It's their property. They can set whatever rule they want. If you don't abide by their rules, they can hit you with, and I know this isn't going to be popular opinion, but it's just the way it is. They can hit you with whatever sanctions they want. If they decide they're going to hit you with 3 strikes on one video, they can hit you with 3 strikes on one video. It's just what you got to deal with when you're doing things on YouTube or with any other company. That's how it works.
Like Clover Tech says, if they are a perpetual money pit, where is the incentive to even try?
Yep.
And this is why it would be nice if Amazon came out with their video service already. Just saying, Amazon.
Well, I want to wait and see if they actually put Hank back up and what they do after the weekend, because we know it was an effort to take channels down, but are they going to reinstate them real quick or not? You think if it was a bunch of troll strikes or something, maybe they should ban the trolls, or ban.
Well, the problem you run into with banning the trolls is that does take a lot of resources, because they would have to get to the extent of banning that particular IP address. Because what's happening is, we've seen it with Frank Castle that comes into a lot of these chats. He will come in, do his little bit, get hidden from the chat, banned from the chat, and banned from the channel or whatever else, and he shows back up with another account. And that's what you're going to see happen if people get their accounts banned, which you see with people who get their accounts deleted. They will turn around and create another account to put their videos back up. So now you're talking about they'd have to get to the extent where they can ban that particular IP address at the location.
And that's another reason why I didn't even go in the direction of the actual trolls, because they're going to do what they're going to do. But the fact of the matter is, YouTube made a door for them to get in, and they told them about the door, and they gave them access to that door constantly. I'm just saying.
And you also got to look at who's making the definition of what a troll is. Yeah. I've been accused by a certain moderator on certain people's channels who will remain nameless right now. I'm sure some of you know who I'm talking about, of being a troll. So who defines who a troll is?
Oh, I'm sure I'm guilty of trolling before.
We all troll every once in a while.
Wouldn't that be the Leprechaun King?
No, it was one of NEA's mods. I'm not going to say who.
No. I'm saying who controls the trolls. The Leprechaun King.
Oh, okay.
All right, we're ready to move on to the next. Take a break and move on to the next topic. I will take the silence as a yes.
And today we have
Yeah.
the Crazy Scotsman 1000 sub giveaway. If you don't know who the Crazy Scotsman is, go check out his link and give him a sub and some thumbs up. So again, that channel is the Crazy Scotsman. And back to our show.
All right, RL, you with us? Or are you still doing work stuff? If you're not, all right, your turn.
All right. Well, I was going to use this article. It's on bearing arms, if anybody reads that or not. But it's a Columbine survivor and state legislator proposes a new gun bill. So basically, this is Patrick Neville, who's now a state rep in Colorado. And he's also a survivor of the Columbine school shooting in the I think it was 99. Has proposed a bill to allow teachers to carry concealed in Colorado schools, which I guess right now in Colorado, you can have your gun at the school, but it has to stay in your vehicle. He's trying to get it to where they can carry in the schools. So I don't know what you guys' opinion are. I'm kind of on the fence. I think if we're going to arm teachers, I mean, we've seen, everybody says about armed security at schools, but we've seen how that can fail in the Florida shooting. So I'm not against arming teachers in school, but I wonder what kind of training, should we have training requirements? Do they have to take, recurring active shooter training? I mean, I think there's probably a lot of trainers out there across the country that would, volunteer even some of their services or give a discount to train teachers if it came down to that. So, I mean, I went to school to teach at one time, and I know if I'd have continued with that, I probably would be signing up for the training myself. So I don't know what you guys think on the whole arming teachers subject here, but figured I'd throw that out there.
Well, I know I discussed this with my daughter this afternoon, and her concern about it was, well, if you don't train these teachers well, what keeps them from possibly shooting each other? How would law enforcement, if they enter the facility, know the difference between the active shooters and the teachers that are carrying around guns at the same time? Which I had not thought of that aspect of it, but it is a valid concern, I suppose.
Yeah, and see, the thing is, as far as the teachers and what they're going to do, I would highly, and we always talk about how everybody needs to go through extra training. It doesn't necessarily just need to be go get your CHL and have at it. Whether it's going and getting some actual full-on tactical training, getting some kind of learning under your belt aside from just your CHL. And I think that would be a big part of it, would be getting the teachers some training as far as handling a building that size, clearing a room, things like that. And that would be a big help on that end of it. Now, as far as law enforcement identifying a threat, that's going to fall heavily on the law enforcement side of it. Now, I know there's a lot of situations where the cops are going to get, and it falls on both sides. Somebody's going to get possibly trigger happy, and you're going to run into that issue. There's always the possibility. But the way I see it, if your teachers are trained correctly on how to handle these types of threat and active shooter situation, then on the law enforcement side, if they're trained correctly and they're doing their job correctly, they're not going to immediately see somebody with a gun necessarily and just open fire. A lot of times you hear about that, but they're supposed to follow a certain protocol to a point.
Yeah, the way I see it is all faculty at the school should be armed, and if they aren't willing, they need to find a new line of work. Their job is to educate and protect those children when they are
now that side of it I will completely disagree on. Their job there is to assist with the education of our youth. The parents' job is the primary education of our youth, but the teachers are not there to protect the students.
They're there
The
to
teachers-
ensure the safety.
They need to ensure the safety of the students, but the teacher's job. I've never like
in that school's care, Tardot. They are responsible for the safety and the care of that child when they are in that school's custody.
The school itself is. I will agree with that. But to tell a teacher that, but I will say this much:
they are the ones that are directly overseeing that classroom. They are the ones that are ultimately the ones that need to be held responsible for not doing their job. The principal who is sitting in the office can't be held responsible for what a teacher isn't doing in their classroom.
But what I'm getting at with that is to tell a teacher that you are responsible, to even, give your life to protect your students, which there's a lot of teachers. I will say right now, there's a lot of teachers I know that would do that. And I think very highly of them. But I don't see where telling the teachers that that is their responsibility is really going to make the difference, because that's not the teacher's responsibility. Now, I'm not saying don't arm the teachers. I agree with that. But I think to tell a teacher, if you don't go get your license and if you don't agree to be armed in the school, you're going to lose your job. That's a rabbit hole we do not need to jump down.
Oh, yeah, it is. It most certainly is.
Well, I just want to say one of the issues when it comes to that is, so a law is passed that the school has to have such and such number of armed personnel on the school, right? Or wherever they may be. The problem with that now is funding. There's a lot of smaller cities just don't have the funds to do some of these things. So who's going to foot that bill?
No, that's exactly right. Now, here's the thing: is with arming the teachers, with giving them, the training that they will need, that would take some funding. But at the same time, sorry, I got an angry 1-year-old, but that would take some funding. But at the same time, that funding, it wouldn't be as difficult as an expenditure as getting off-duty police officers, for instance. The business I worked in recently, where I would have to be responsible for getting the off-duty officers to assist us in a facility with closing down a store or running something on a Black Friday sale. You got to understand the expense for officers. You're talking, depending on the department, anywhere from $40 to $50 an hour. And depending on how many officers you're going to want, that's going to get really expensive, especially if you're talking about a possible 10-hour day to 12-hour day.
There's also I've seen some people where they said about having the little community organized or oriented police have those stations in the school. I want to know how.
Yeah, you have your school resource officers, and when it comes to additional training, teachers are already having continuing education classes to be a teacher. Why not have an extra continuing education for the teachers that want to conceal carry or just be able to carry? And as far as talking about a teacher being able to protect the whole school, that's not what the teacher's supposed to do. That teacher has a classroom, and if an active shooter is in the school, they're there to protect their students in their classroom. They're not there to protect and go on a search and seizure of the school looking for an active shooter. That is not what we're talking about. And that's starting to open up a whole different topic on a conversation that's not where we were going. The deal is that we need to open the door so teachers who want to can sit there and go get their CHL. There's schools that have already started it. And if a teacher wants to, that's fine. And if a school wants to sit there and say, hey, we will pay for it, there's bake sales, car washes, everything else that kids and teachers and everyone in the community can participate in to make sure that those funds are there if that school can't afford to take it out of that school's budget.
Those are some great points you make.
See, when I look at it, if you make it as a voluntary thing, then you're going to have the teachers are probably going to be the ones to pay for their own, their own weapon that they're going to concealed carry and their own gear. I'm assuming a lot of them are going to be people that probably carry anyway, or were thinking about it just in general.
But
so really,
here's the part
about training for the training.
Yeah, but here's part of that though. Like if you talk about something where the teachers are having to, for instance, purchase their own firearm, their own ammunition, if it is fall into that situation, it possibly could fall under a tax break right now, but there's always a way to push that into a tax break where there's a possibility of having a tax break because you're buying something more or less for work if it's something that you've gotten your license through work.
Teachers already spend half of their freaking paycheck buying stuff for their classroom. I don't think buying a gun and whatever holster or something else is really going to affect them when they're looking at the bigger picture of if for some reason an active shooter comes in and tries to break into my classroom, I don't have to throw myself in front of my students so they can freaking survive. Now I can take that active shooter down before he's able to kill any of my kids.
Yeah, I think that's part of the training. You would have to decide on what the training would be. And that's the way I kind of would envision it is if you're in a lockdown situation where everybody's locked in the room, if the shooter comes up to that door, you put 2 in the shooter and that's it. You know what I mean? You're not going to go out actively searching for it.
Exactly.
But, has
I
anybody...
think the first door he kicks in and there's, bullets coming back at him, that's probably going to end the situation right there anyway.
Has anybody here seen the pictures out of Israel where you see the teachers on field trips with a Galil ace strapped to their back?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other thing. Teachers are always sitting there having to look after not only their students, but other students when they go on field trips. What's to sit there and say that teacher is not going to be attacked on a field trip? You're telling me that teacher's not going to think that it's a good idea to have her weapon or his weapon available for if a situation should pop up? Field trips in schools are pretty much the same thing. Those teachers are responsible for all of those kids to get to where they're going and back safely.
And reality-wise, an active shooter course could be done. Let's say you have what's a medium-sized school, maybe 40 teachers at a medium-sized high school, 50 teachers. Say, 15 of them want to get their right or their permit and be able to carry in the school. I'm sure you could get some kind of a break from a local trainer or somebody that that can do, maybe even the police force when they do their active shooter training, to give a group break to have all those people take an active shooter course.
Yeah, and with continuing education, I mean, there's always like a Saturday, or some instances it's a Saturday and a Sunday class. But for getting your continuing education for your concealed carry weapon, that could be done in one day. These teachers could take one day out of the month and go do that continuing education.
We have in-service days where they're in the school doing meetings and stuff like that. Have an extra in-service day every year. You could even have an active training event at the school. Have law enforcement.
Exactly.
I'm just thinking out loud, really, but
they have the whole summer to do the training and run these kind of drills.
Mm.
Yeah, but that you're having to think that the teachers, that's their vacation, and they may have plans. But if you have
the whole summer for their vacation,
well, yeah, but I mean, no, they're not going to have the whole vacation. But if you have something where it's 4 times a year, you've got this month, and then a couple of months later, you've got this Saturday, and then a couple of months later, you got this Saturday. Spread it out so it's not just, okay, well, you're going to do 2 classes during the summer or 8 classes in the summer or something like that. Spread it out so there's still opportunities and have it to where there's more than one throughout the year. So if teachers can't make it that Saturday, well, next month there's also another class. So if you missed that one, you can make it to this one possibly.
Well, I noticed a lot of people on the YouTube side, like Nodak and Vanessa Kitty and Ghost and Clover and Grim, are discussing all of this, and some of the people are saying, well, we put some of the money out of our own pocket for some of these expenses. So one of the ways, like you guys had mentioned it, is where you get a discount from trainers to put it together for the schools. And when you have such a large group of teachers in even a small school, there are 4 weeks in a month. Just require it of one group from that batch of teachers to go in 1 weekend a month. So you have 4 weeks in a month. Every Saturday, a certain group will do training in that week on that Saturday or Sunday or whatever day it is.
Absolutely.
And they'll go training 12 times a year. And that also will cover, that also should cover, because it should be benefit to these people who do volunteer for this. It should cover their concealed carry permit requirements when they have to renew that as well. And I think that would be an added bonus to get people who are already shooting, who already have the equipment, so they don't have to go spend quote unquote additional monies, because these people already have what they need. Just give them the ammunition, send them to training once a month, and I think that would work out. Also, Clover mentioned, I don't know if it was Clover who mentioned it, but also get the, like Gunpowders had said before, you have the bake sales. Also get gun stores to volunteer to sponsor some of this training.
And that's another good idea, because some of the people that work at gun stores have kids that are in school, and I am pretty sure some of them are owners of these gun shops, and they would love to sit there and donate their time or anything to be able to help the teachers protect their kids while they're in class. There's always a possibility.
Anybody have anything else?
Yeah, I was going to say about earlier when I was the people that are saying we need to put the little mini police stations in the schools and use those as security. It goes to the same point about the arming of teachers. One, how are they going to pay for it? And if you put one of those little police stations in the school, you're going to be taking classrooms out of that school. And
Well, no, they also have the mobile portable stations outside. You don't have to literally have it inside the school.
Not every place has a large enough parking lot or whatnot where you can put one of those, John.
No, I'm not talking about one of the emergency response ones where they have a command center. It's just a small little thing. It's not something that takes up more than one car space.
I know what you're talking about. The school my kids went to in the town that's not far from here, the school's so small that the parking lot's not big enough where you would even be able to put one of those in without taking away parking spaces. And then you have the police cruisers that people were saying to have in those with those police stations. There's not enough room at that school to do that.
So just park it out on the street.
You can't.
Why?
The streets aren't wide enough.
Some of the portables that we had at our high school, they ended up putting portables up on the front lawn to have added classrooms. So I think if there was a need for a pop-up police station, they could find some way to put up it's no bigger than like a small shed, but it's a pop-up building. Well, not a pop-up, but it's a portable building, and they could put it on the grass somewhere, since it's usually no bigger than like a normal size
at my kids'
kitchen
school,
or something.
The school they went to, the only place where they would be able to put one would be on the baseball field, and the kids need that for the baseball team and the girls softball team. They literally have nowhere where they could put any of that kind of thing at that school.
Well, now there's a lot of schools.
Well, you may even be able to share all that. I'm not against that idea, but like you said, that sounds more costly than even just training the teachers to me. To build a police station somewhere on the school grounds, then you'd have to pay extra, police to be there. And we've already seen that school resource officers and, having an officer or two on the grounds doesn't guarantee anything if they're 4 or 5 minutes away from where the shooter starts.
And Ghost,
if you have 15 teachers willing to be armed in the school and you can spread them out, you've got somebody armed,
within
a
seconds
minute or two away. Yeah.
Right.
And Ghost in the chat said to utilize the teachers' lounge. Their school doesn't have a teachers' lounge. The teachers do all their work when they are on their breaks and when they're making copies and everything. That's all done in the main school office. When I tell you this is a small school, I mean it is a small school. They just don't have the room to host a mini police station in the school or on the school grounds. It's just not there.
I have an idea, and I don't think you could be negative about it. So here's the deal. Set up one of those small little outhouse police stations right in the middle of the street. It's a school. No cars need to go down that block. Have them go around. Period.
There's only one road that goes to the school.
Oh, my God.
Here's the argument I've got to this.
John, we're not talking New York City, man.
A lot of the schools in our area have had at least one or two school resource officers in it. Now, there's two sides of this. With a school resource officer, we already saw in Florida, you're relying on a person to do their job, more or less. And it's never a guarantee. Some people wuss out when the situation comes up. And I kind of throw that term in there, but they do. They kind of just they scare off and they don't do their job. But the side of it is, if they are going to go to the extent of putting SROs in the schools we have in the area that have school resource officers, a lot of the school resource officers don't have their own office in all of the schools. Some schools do because they're a bit bigger, they're newer, they've had some remodels done, but there's a lot of them, they just don't have their own office. They usually work out of the front offices with the administration staff. Most time, throughout the day, they're walking the halls. They're not sitting in one office in one room. They're walking the halls until they're needed.
Which is how it should be.
Here's the thing about that. You put one or two school resource offices in the school my kids went to, there's only one or two cops in the town to begin with that are on the town's payroll.
And that's where you're going to run into the problem. They would either have to hire new officers, because a lot of the districts that do that school resource officer program, that's the officer's on duty role. That's not like an extra payment through the school district. That's their on duty role for the day. So that'd be the big problem, is there would be new expenditures for the city itself.
Right. Yeah. So that comes back to what I was saying before. So everything is set to go now. How do you fund it? So I think we've come up with a few solutions, but I understand some towns are a little more difficult to satisfy those requirements. I do understand that.
Yeah, in the town here, if you call 911 because you need police assistance with something, I would say 95% of the time you're going to get a sheriff's deputy or a state trooper that shows up at your door.
Yeah, I'm going to say the school, before it closed down 2 years ago, that was near me, is literally like 2 miles away, and that's under state police coverage in PA. Like, if I make from my house or from that school, if I had to call for assistance, I'm dealing with a state police barracks that's 20 miles away, and the nearest officer might be 30 miles away that comes out of that barracks. So, I mean, there is no police coverage where I'm at.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the same way in New York, John, but when I was growing up in Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh Board of Education actually had their own police department with sworn police officers.
Right, and depending on where you are in the state of New York, you have that, and you have small towns, sheriffs, and whatnot as well. So,
The-
yeah, again, I understand some localities are not well funded because they're such small localities.
Yeah, and if you look at where a lot of these school shootings are, like Sandy Hook, for example, it's a small town area.
Right.
Most of the officers that responded to that were sheriff's department. It wasn't the local PD. When you look at the response on the news and everything, those were mostly all sheriff's vehicles. That's what you just got in Florida. They were sheriff's vehicles. If you're it's small town school, the town might only have one or two officers to begin with, and you try putting a school resource officer in the school, there's no funds to do it.
Yeah, it's quite a strain on some of those towns, yeah. That's why I think a bill for it should pass. I think the state should be responsible for it, and those localities or smaller towns that require funding should be the ones getting it, not the big cities, or at least the larger towns that already have the resources. I think those areas that are in need of funding should be the ones to receive that funding.
Ghost, I saw your comment about the funding issue. West Virginia, the funds aren't there to do it.
Oh, Ghost just said it. Yeah.
Yeah, there just isn't the funds to, even on the state level in this state, where they can put extra funding into the education to hire officers out of the state pool. It's just not there. We tried in this county to get a referendum to save the music department at the one school, and people would not vote yes to have their taxes on their property raised $2, a whole $2 for everybody in the county, and they voted no, and that was to save the music department at one of the schools. I can't imagine what these people's reaction will be if you ask them to have their taxes raised $10 to try and pay for police presence at the schools. It's just there's got to be some way to pay for it, and nobody seems to be willing to be the ones to have to pay for it.
I just want to add something to the smaller towns that don't have the budget already for having the amount of police officers that they would need. Why not just have that mandate, that make it a law, that you have to have a certain number of teachers that to cover the program, so you don't need to think about having those officers. Once you have those teachers covering it, you don't need the officers. All you need is a good training program for them.
Yeah.
Exactly. That sounds like a good idea. I mean, there seems to be a lot of excuses being thrown around to why something can't happen. But if somebody's looking out for their students and the children, there's going to be a way to solve the issue, whether it's through fundraising or making a mandatory law or whatever. There is a way to fix the problem and find a solution that works for everybody.
Exactly. Take out the politics and figure out solutions. That's it. I mean, there's always a solution to every problem if you really want to find a solution.
Well, that's the problem. A lot of people will talk that, oh, we got to do this, we got to do that. But when it comes time to put up or shut up and fund it or volunteer to do the work that needs done, all of a sudden they don't want to be involved anymore. It's not my kid. My kids don't go to that school. Why should I pay or why should I volunteer?
And
Because
that's
you're part of the community.
And like Gunpowder, and some of the people in the chat were saying, do those fundraisers. Get businesses to donate. You'll have your funding if you really get somebody who can do a good job to spread that message.
schools do raffles all the time to raise money for whatever program that they're trying to do or something like that. These small towns that can't or won't put the money into the funds, they could do a school raffle where local businesses sit there and donate whatever, and it could be raffled off or auctioned off or whatever. You've got a school that sits there and has a woodwork program or something like that. Donate the stuff that's being built by the kids to the raffle, and then put it in the raffle and sell it off, and then you've got more money going into whatever it is that you need to be able to have funded.
Patriot in the Dark says every town has a VFW. There's no excuse. We're out here and we would love to be able to help.
Every town.
That's an even better idea.
We don't have one here.
No, you don't have to have it. You could have it the town next over to you. It doesn't matter. VFW is
John, we don't have one in the area, is what I'm saying.
You don't.
There is probably a veteran in the town somewhere that would be willing to sit there.
Well, there's veterans. I'm just saying we don't have, like, there's no American Legion Hall that's within a certain distance. And
again, they don't have to be right. They don't have to be right on top of you.
John, I know that. That's not what I'm saying. I was just making a comment about the person saying that every town has, but that's not the case. Not every town does.
Okay.
Where you could go and meet with them.
Okay, so let's figure. So what's the solution? VFWs are not limited to their immediate area. They are connected to other VFWs. There's a reason for that. So reach out to them wherever they are and let them know about your situation, what you guys have planned, what's been passed into law, and what you need covered.
You're still talking about an expense, even if the vets volunteer their time for training.
No, we're not talking about volunteering anything. We're talking about VFW as a financial source.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter where you are, what pothole your school is in. It doesn't matter. They're there for a reason.
Well, and I think a big point we've reached with our conversation here is, and we're having the same issue that society has in general with this. The politics tend to guide the problem too much. It no longer becomes, okay, we have a solid solution for doing this. Let's fund it. Let's figure out how to fund it. There's a way to fund it. It goes from that to, well, I don't like the idea of having teachers armed. So how are we, it becomes the issue of there's no way to fund it. And it starts off with the people that I don't like this idea. So how do we fund it?
It doesn't even have to be a funding issue because of the simple fact that there are veterans everywhere that would love to sit there and volunteer their time to protect kids. I know quite a few of them that would love the opportunity. And so for these small towns that don't have it in the funding, or there's no police available to do this, go ask your veterans if they would mind sitting there and protecting your kids. And I can guarantee 9 out of 10 times you're going to find somebody that will do it for free.
And I would give you a standing ovation of 1,000,001 hands right now for saying that.
But then you're bringing up another issue that you're going to have in a lot of states. They would have to be trained as armed guards.
What's wrong with that?
They're the military. They've already been trained.
It doesn't matter.
Doing continuing education is not going to be an issue when they're doing it for free.
Yeah, it would. They would still have to be licensed as armed guards, and
so what's wrong with that? So
I'm pretty sure a veteran would not mind getting his own license to be an armed guard.
All right. So we're reaching our hour to an hour and a half now.
Yeah.
Do we want to break and then just go into closing?
One last point, Tardot. In the state of West Virginia, because I was just looking into this, because I was actually going to pitch the idea to the school that's there. You have to get your armed guard license, you have to be working for a security company for at least 5 years.
Well, then that state sucks, and it needs to have some
No,
major
it doesn't suck.
major fixing.
It does. It doesn't suck. It's
Okay,
fix
it's
the
flawed.
no. It doesn't suck. It's not flawed. Fix the problem. Get it to where they can get it under the Department of Education. Simple. It's very simple. You get part-time teachers that come and go all the time. You can't tell me they have a straight paycheck and they're looked at upon as employees. Get the Department of Education to help them get those licenses without that 5-year requirement. Period.
They would still have to be employed by a company.
No, the Department of Education is that name of the company under that license. Politicians and the government can do this. They can make this happen, but you have to have politicians that are worth.
They're not going to.
Okay, that's a different story. That's a very different story, but it can be done if they are willing.
It can be done, but it won't be. I'm telling, because people have tried having that. There have been petitions from the various security companies who lost contracts because they weren't allowed to hire or promote any of the unarmed guards to armed guards because they hadn't been working there long enough.
I'm totally, that's inconsequential to me. Their businesses, they make money. I don't care about them. I'm concerned for these people.
You're going to run into the same regulation. That's all I'm saying.
Then find
regulation if you were to hire, if the school board were to be incorporated and hire veterans or ex-cops, whatever, to be security in the school, they still would have to go through that same period.
Then get new politicians who can make things happen and stop playing politics with people's lives. Not you, but your state. West Virginia, get off your asses, get moving.
It's not just West Virginia.
No, I know it's not a lot of.
You get the same policies in just about every state. There's, again, I was just looking into all this. If you look at New York, you got the similar. You look at Pennsylvania, you got similar. If you look at Virginia, you got similar. It's a countrywide thing. They have to be for some. There's some about they have to be an unarmed guard for so long to prove that they are competent enough as a security to show that they can patrol properly or some nonsense before they can be given a firearm as an armed guard.
In New York State, all you have to do is be an employee, and it doesn't matter how long you're an employee. You can be an employee for one day. Yeah.
Because I know even in PA, you're required to have Act 235 training to be armed security.
No, you're going to get the training anyway. It doesn't matter how long you've been a guard for. I can go get a guard license. I can go apply for the training right now. There's no requirement for me to be a security guard holder, even though I've held one for over 15 years. I could have gotten my security license yesterday if I qualified. I worked for the company. Huh?
You got the experience though, because some states will recognize a prison or jail guard as being a security officer.
Right, but I left that out because I don't want people to think it's everywhere that's the case.
Oh, I know it's not the case everywhere, but that might be one of the stipulations or loopholes that New York has. That's all I'm not saying that it is. I'm speaking hypothetically.
Right. So all you have to
the loophole that you have.
Right. So the only requirement
who isn't considered to be security, whereas a prison guard could be considered security, might not fit through that same loophole. You get what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, but it's not everywhere. I understand it's in some places, and that's actually unfortunate. But for this, you're fixing these requirements or laws or whatever you want to call them for a specific reason. So what I am saying to states like West Virginia and other states who are in similar situations, if you have politicians who are not willing to fix those issues to make those things possible, you need to step down and let somebody else take your place. Or you need to be voted out. And those people of those states that really care need to do their due diligence and go out and vote for the right people, whoever they may be. Just saying.
All right. So we're good to start wrapping up.
So we'll take a quick break before we do the wrap up. Everyone is aware of CMAX and the medical issues he's dealing with right now. Go check him out, CMAX, on YouTube for his subscriber thank yous and giveaways, as well as C4 Defense. Go ahead and subscribe to these folks. Check out their channels, thumb them up, and help support them. Check out the links. And back to our show.
All right, guys. So yeah, I think we're ready to wrap it up. I know we missed a few people tonight, but namely me and Rich. But that always leaves us topics for later. I'm sure we'll have a few more for next week. So I guess let's run it through the room and let everybody do their little plugs and 2-bit self promotions.
Yeah,
So we want to
start with
Gary.
Gary.
We can start with Gary.
Yeah, start with Gary.
All right. Well, thanks for the invite. We had some great discussion tonight. Gizzard Gary, check out my website, www.gizzardgary.com. And thanks for everybody for watching this evening.
All right, RL, you got anything to promote or talk about?
Well, I have my show on tomorrow night after Midnight Range TM at 12:30 in the morning. So if anybody's a night owl, I'm one then. And we'll see. Everybody make sure to get out and do the Gun Channels Blitz if you guys are out there over on That Guy's Wife. See if we can get her over 100 subs. And I think that's about it.
All right, Gunpowder, anything new that you want to plug?
Yes, guys, don't forget tomorrow night at 6 p.m. we are starting the 2A rally prep and discussion chats. Also, go check out Gun Gals tomorrow evening at 8:30 Central Standard Time. And thank you for the invite.
I don't know if you qualify as an invite. You're one of the co-hosts.
Oh, yeah, that is right. Okay, yeah. Sorry, blonde moment.
Wouldn't that be a purple moment?
Well,
Skittles moment, sorry.
What color is your hair this week?
Oh, she's rainbow.
Blue, green, purple, some pinks, turquoise. Yeah, it's Skittles.
All right, what about you, John?
I just want to remind everybody to go ahead and check out Gun Channels. Only a couple more days left for their Indiegogo campaign for the 4th year upgrades to the gunchannels.com website. Go check them out.
Yeah, alrighty. Tardot, you got anything?
Yes, I do. So let me take a deep breath real quick. All right. So find me on Tardot357 on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Gun Channels. Actually, on Gun Channels, it's going to be Tardot Productions. Don't forget, I'm sure Gunpowder said it, and I just totally blanked and missed when she said it, but we'll...
What just happened?
They just dropped.
And at the same time.
Yep.
At least they do it as a couple.
I really don't like T-Mobile anymore, y'all.
Yeah, so where did it kick me off at now? So don't forget we'll be having the 2A rally call tomorrow at 6 p.m. Central. Also, I do want to throw out there checking out Night Strike on Indiegogo. I don't have the link with me right at the moment, but he's doing a little Indiegogo for his Tulsa visit. He's trying to get out to Tulsa, and I know if we hit a certain amount, he's got it in there as a flex amount. So I'm going to tell everybody, if he hits a certain amount, he will wear a blue dress while at Wanamaker at some point.
And tactical boots.
So please, let's look at that. Let's get Jonas in the blue dress. I think that may be it. That's all I can think of at the moment.
Would that technically be getting Night Strike, and Jonas?
That
Maybe.
sounded dirty, but probably.
Just saying.
I still think he should be made to wear a push-up bra with the blue dress.
I agree.
I third that. That would be awesome. I got one he can borrow, but he keeps telling me no.
Hey, I still want to see the cage match between Gunpowder and Night Strike. I offered to give him some funding for that.
I'll pay for that throw punch.
Oh, I do have one other thing I forgot. Tardot Productions is www.tardotproductions.com. Me and Gunpowder both have blogs on there and some links and different things. And by the end of this weekend, I'm looking to have a store on there where I'm going to be doing T-shirts and stuff through a third-party website, but I will have paracord stuff that I'm going to be looking at selling through that website.
Awesome.
Such a page pusher, man.
Yeah, I think I'm done with my 2-bit promoting. Need to take a breath.
Breathe,
Is
Tardot,
Ghost still
breathe.
on the chat? Was that enough? You can ask Ghost if that was good enough.
All right, I just want to mention again, guys, if you got the funds and to donate to the CMAX deal, $10 raffle ticket. There's different guys doing it. You get an opportunity to win a nice firearm, maybe some accessories to go with it, and he could really use the funds. I know you got people on gun channels that are also trying to raise money, but this is a guy who's trying to care for his family while at the same time dying from cancer. So, and he's a good guy. So if you can, you look into trying to help those guys out. They're doing a good thing for him. And then I just wanted to say, Clover, Ghost, you're both very welcome. I'm sure you know why. And you both deserved it. So with the work you do, and that's all I got. So if nobody else has anything else, I think we can call that for tonight. And I want to thank everybody for coming. And
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Thank you.
Right on.
And thank everybody. And I want to thank everybody who was watching and commenting in the chat. You guys had just as much of a lively chat, I think, as we had in here. So thank you, and see you next week.
2A every day.